Now, if you look around YouTube, you realize most of the content is regarding how you can do stock analysis, how you can get to $1 million fast. Now, all these content, they are good. If you're looking for such content, you can even check on the previous one that I've done before. 5 steps if you're age of 30 to get to $250,000. Now, those are good, but if you're really looking for tutorials that help you in your retirement planning, solid calculation tutorials, this video is definitely going to address that. Because I've seen this article come out, this actually speaks that half of Singaporeans, actually even working adults all across the world, half are thinking children are needed to help them in terms of their retirement. That needs to be worked on. That's why this tutorial is going to really help you understand retirement a lot better. Few key parts. The first, I'll touch on some of the problems when it comes to retirement calculation. I'll show you exactly how to do that. The next part, I'll give you solutions, what you need to do to prepare yourself before you reach the actual retirement years. Now, if this topic interests you, continue watching on. Hi guys, welcome back. You know, when it comes to retirement, it's actually a very stressful period because that is a point in life where you're vulnerable. You're not able to get back into the workforce so easily. People are definitely going to employ someone younger. You can't command back the same pay. And what you fear the most is your bank account starting to look less and less, and you cannot do anything about it. Those of you who have been retrenched before or in between jobs before, you kind of know that feeling. You know, your bank account is sliding down and you want to address that feeling because when your bank account grows, you feel confident. You don't want to have that kind of fear lingering at the back of your mind every time when you have a big purchase. That's why the fear of running out of money is a very real thing. You have to take note of that, and let's address it in today's video. That is why this article actually has this that's very special. I want to pull that up for you because in this article it mentions something I bet you haven't think of this perspective before. It mentions over here 80% still have their retirement savings after 2 decades. Still have 80% of their pre-retirement savings after 2 decades. That is really, you know, holding on to their cash for dear life. They are not spending that money. It's very sad. Everybody, we only have one life. If we hold on to all we have and then we suddenly pass away, then it's just for the next generation. This study is in America. It's done by BlackRock. But nonetheless, the green part, let me show you again over here. 1/3 of retirees actually grew their assets. Now, maybe they're high net worth, the business is growing as they transition, but I'm afraid that it's because retirees are just holding on to that cash, really consuming very little. That scarcity mindset is really eating the retiree alive, and let's all not make that mistake. So let's pull back that article. You know, at the start I mentioned 50% of Singaporeans believe that they need to rely on their children for retirement. And in that article, this is the subsequent part if you read it. I'll leave links below just in case you're curious about it. So in that surveyed population, about half of them earn between 70,000 to 250,000. That is a decent manager's level income. So when someone is in that income level, naturally their expenses are quite high. That is why if you follow the red zone, median expectation for how much they need in retirement range, most of them believe is 3,500 to 5,000. Some even believe they need more than 5,000 a month when it comes to retirement. That's their choice. But when we look at the calculation, we realize that that's a big problem. Then in the green zone over here, a large proportion, 42%, believe they are unsure how much income they really need. So it's just numbers being plugged over the air. And I believe the person doing this study, once they show them how much is needed, you want more than $5,000? How much is needed, you're going to get a shock because the reality sets in. The reality is that to build that amount to sustain yourself for retirement at $5,000 is not easy. And that's the real math, and this is the next part that we'll touch on. Okay, this next session, let's look at the data, let's look at the math. So for example, if you are thinking about retirement and you don't know how long you need this retirement pot, the logic will be how nice it is if you can just consume the returns, consume the dividend income. Then in that case, you don't worry how many years, you don't need to even answer that question, or make sense? So that means if you want 5,000 income, that means 60,000 a year. And if you intend to draw a 5% rate of return, dividend yield plus investment returns, that means that you need a $1.2 million investment pot to consume out $60,000 perpetually, so that you still have your 5,000 per month and that your investment pot is not affected at all. Now that is great, but that means also that your investment needs to have equities. Is that something comfortable with you when you are in retiring? I think the answer is probably no, simply because at that age you have to remember you are protecting that capital. You are really not too happy about it being at risk. And just like we see in this COVID-19 pandemic, if markets downturn 30%, it looks ugly on a 1.2 million investment pot. That means 360,000 loss. So let's put that equation into perspective. Investing for 5% rate return at a retiree's age is not easy. It's something very uncomfortable. So now let's flip the equation differently. Say you want to protect that money. Just keep it in a bank, buy Singapore savings bond, really guaranteed. How is it going to look like? Then we need to answer that next question, which is how long is it going to last? If not, we can't really calculate. And say for example, we use 30 years in this second equation. 30 years, you keep it in a bank, draw it out as cash, you don't need to worry about or don't even have a debate about investment returns. Then it will require you $1.8 million because you're consuming $60,000 a year for 30 years. $1.8 million. Now, of course, 1.8 million. How many in the survey have 1.8 million? The answer probably is very low. That's why everybody is so concerned. That's why everybody's solution is, hey, I can't get to 1.8 million. Maybe my children need to help me to reach this 5,000 a month. But also you'll be thinking, if you have followed the argument until here, you realize that, hey, if you keep in a bank or if you buy Singapore savings bond, there should be some interest, correct? But when we try to factor in interest, we also have to factor in inflation, which means we have to really put the math to more favorables. If we use 1% interest from the bank account and 2% in terms of inflation, then you realize that you need even more money. That's the reality of things. I've done the math for you. I've done the hard part for you to really see quickly. If you want 5,000 a month and you have a 1% interest on your capital and that inflation is 2% as per what we have seen for the last 10 years, the investment pot you need is 2,093,670. Now, 1.8 million was bad. Now it's 2,093,000. How many in that surveyed pot, how many of us viewing this are really going to reach this 2,093,000 when we reach age of 60? If we are quite far, we'll kind of lose hope on it. That's why there's so many retirement products that come on the market. They try to help relieve the stress. AXA is retire happy. Manulife retire ready. Really to help you reduce the stress. But really, the real way to tackle that problem is in this next section where I'll show you how to really target the right amounts, be realistic about it, so that you kind of know you can reach that amount with certainty and you dare to consume your retirement income out from your investment pot. So now let's move on to the next section. If you have followed to here, smash the like button so that more people can see valuable content like this and really get the retirement they deserve. So now before we answer that question, so now let's pull out this chart over here for you to see. This chart is very valuable simply because it tells you what is likely going to happen in terms of expenses when you reach retirement years 60s, 70s, 80s. So what do we see from this chart over here? The first thing you realize is the highest level of expenses happens during 40s to 60. Now, what does that tell you? In 40s to 60s, you have bringing up kids expenses, you have mortgage, you have travel to do. There's a lot of things that's consuming your monies. But once you reach past 60, once you're really in retirement, you realize that your expense level drops very naturally. Everybody would have the same perspective in one way or another. So that gives you certain comfort, which means if you're spending $5,000 now, you only need $3,500 to be really happy when it comes to retirement. If you spend $3,000, then you only need $2,100 per month in terms of income to feel happy in terms of retirement. But a few key points though that also I suggest you. How does it actually decrease? Because a few things happen. The second bar from the bottom, you realize that dark blue, that is housing. And that is logical because you are funding mortgage in your 30s, 40s, 50s. But once you pass a certain age, your mortgage expense drops. And also next thing, food and beverage, the sky blue over there. You realize that 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, the expenditure on food is usually a consistent bar. You're looking for good food, you're looking for dining, there's inflation. But once you get to retirement years, it looks like most people actually tone down on their food and beverage expenses. So expenses do really drop, so don't worry about it. We have now real data, real information to really plan out how much you need. So just now I mentioned, one way is to know how much expenses you have, then you project 70% of it, 70-80% of it. Then the next part is to really get some level of investments. Why is it important? Because as you have seen, if you put it in a bank account, you realize that inflation is eroding that money. It's just going to require you to have a lot in terms of capital. But what if you get a 3% rate of return? 3% is not difficult at all. Any annuity plan in Singapore gets you at least 3%. Any investments that has bonds as a component of it, 50% at least, gets you 3% quite easily. That's why 3% is pretty easy. It's still pretty conservative and can be done. So now let's pull on the math. If your returns are 3% and your inflation is 2%, that means your monies actually are not eroded. Your capital is not eroded by inflation. It's only eroded by your consumption. Make sense? And now, previously we mentioned last for 30 years. Now let's stretch it to last for 40 years, which means if you retire at 60, it can last you to 100. Sounds a lot more comforting, sounds a lot more concrete, because medical science might extend our lifespan and stuff. I've done the hard math for you. If you are indeed spending 3,000 a month now, and we use the 70%, it means you need 2,100 for retirement. And when you have a 3% investment pot or plans that give you 3% that you want to last for 40 years, you only need 833,564. How does that sound like? 833,000 versus just now we saw $2,093,000. That is a world of difference. That comes about because you are able to keep your expenses lower. You're able to use less and have the right approach when it comes to managing that capital. Instead of putting it in the bank, rolling fixed Ds, you're actually understanding if you are actively investing conservatively, you actually don't need that much to retire. So I'll end off on a few points. These are 3 key tips. Jot that down because that could really help you, especially if you are 40s, 50s, thinking about retirement seriously. The first thing is maintain a budget. Once you reach retirement, you have to maintain a budget just like what you're doing now. Because with a budget, that's where any capital can be conserved accurately. That budget also tells you what is out of reach. If you are looking for a fantastic trip to outer space or cruise, luxury cruise, and it's out of budget, you have to be realistic about it. The budget guides you, the budget keeps you safe. Nothing else does it better than a budget. The second thing is you have to be open about it with someone in the family. That's something that I've seen before. That's because also when you have a child and your child wants you to support in their financial dreams, set up a business, etc. I say, Dad, Mom, can you give me this 200,000 in terms of capital? Then you kind of know if you have only that much for your retirement, you know the reason why you're going to say no. You know the reason how to get your child to understand your certain constraints, and so that there'll be no conflict of problems when it comes to that point, because that money is meant to last for retirement, and that's why you should communicate with someone within the family openly about your retirement budgets. And the third part is look for qualified advisor. Look for second opinion from a qualified advisor, because at every point you need to review that consistently. You can't inflate 2,001 per month and just keep increasing, 2%, 2,200 to draw. It's very complicated. So we have someone to review it, professional review, as well as to look after the investments for you so that you can get that 3% that peace of mind when it comes to retirement. So with that, I hope I've covered a lot of points to give you a perspective how much you need exactly, so it will not be the same as those that's in the survey. So you know exactly how much you need. If you have 3,000 expenses now, you need 2,100 in retirement years. And that means $833,000 a pot, you're good already. If you have more than that, you can even spend a higher amount. Go ahead and spend happily, because that is ultimately what you deserve in retirement. So with that, I'll sign off. I see you in a future video. Look for various videos already done up in this playlist. It should help you in different ways. With that, I'll sign off. Take care and goodbye.